of all, we finally got a multiple listing system. It was a privately owned system back, I think it was probably like about 1975. I don't remember the exact date. I think it was 75. And they had it was privately owned by two guys who were brokers. And we had a loose leaf system, like you had a little small, it was about the size of a half of a letterhead sheet again, but it was typewritten. And they would bring the listings around once a week, and they'd hand them out. And as a matter of fact, they would bring around, they had a courier that would bring around every day, they'd bring these changes. So anytime you had a change if you had a listing that sold, expired, or whatever, you'd get a sheet that changes, so you'd have to mark your loose leaf listing up to be able to keep up to date on the listings and what have you. There was no pictures on the listings. If you wanted a picture, you had to go around and take it yourself. I had a kid that used to ride around after school and take pictures of all the listings, bring them back. We'd put it in a slide carousel and show them to customers when they came in. That was how we did it back then. And then finally, when I became president in '77, we decided we wanted to have a board-owned multiple listing service because these other guys were private, and although they were nice people, a lot of times they did things that wasn't what the board wanted. And of course we weren't making any money. We were having to pay $20 per listing back then, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if you get quite a few listings, it gets to be expensive. But our first year, we were still charging $20 a listing to put them in, but we had a book, and the book when we first started, it was printed by a company called PRC. I think they were in Tennessee. But when I first became president, we decided we were going to do this, and we actually went down and borrowed some money from the bank to start our little system. But our board back then did not even have an executive director. We didn't even have a file on every agent. That's what blew my mind when I went by to pick up. I never forget. I went by and picked up the information from the previous president. Went by and she gave me this. She said, "Now there it is, right there. It was in a cardboard box. I'm not kidding. It was probably about 2 feet long, and a foot wide, and maybe a foot high. It would hold legal size documents, probably something like one of these banker boxes, and it had in it, I think, a couple checkbooks and a few little odds and ends, papers, documents, whatever, and that was it. And I said, "Where's the file on each agent? We don't have one." So that's the first thing we did. I got my secretary we filled a file on every agent. It wasn't very extensive information, but at least we got something on each agent. And then when we got the MLS started in '77, we finally hired a executive director I think his name was Mr. Daniels. That was back when Jimmy Carter was president. I think Jimmy Carter was elected in '76, and this was '77. So it was a different world back then.
So the first, David Gray was the first one who started a multiple listing. And it was on mimeographed copy sheets. And you spent half the day taking out the expired ones or the sold ones and putting in the new ones, and God help you if you went on a vacation and came back. And then the next one was, we got a computer, and it was the kind where you had to dial up and then plug the phone in. And we thought that was pretty good. And then the next one was it burned it on the paper, and if you got the paper out in the sun for too long, your listing disappeared. But we thought that was miraculous. And then we got a book, I had pictures, and I really liked that, and I was sorry when we gave that up. At that time, our office was on Bragg Road, and we had 2 storefronts. And it was getting a little crowded, particularly if we wanted to have, we didn't have membership meetings there, but if you had a training session, orientation for new agents, whatever, it got crowded. And after one such meeting, somebody said something to the effect that it was getting pretty crowded in here. I said, you go find me a building, we'll buy it, you know. And one of the agents came back and said the employment agency on the corner of Hanover and Kenmore was for sale. I said, I'll go look at it. So we got Eric Johnson, who was an appraiser and had his own real estate company, to go down and take a look at it. I figured his opinion was a lot better than mine. He said it was a good buy, and so we had him, well, he negotiated. I don't remember whether he negotiated the contract and then I got board approval. It may have been a contract based on approval, but I really anticipated some opposition because it was a big purchase for people who were just renting. Planned that meeting right down to had only one vote opposition, and we got our first office. Everything has changed, everything. Training has changed, computers, cell phones. I was required to get a cell phone by the company in order to get referrals, you know, coming in from, of course I lost it. Took me about 4 months before I found it in the closet, but you had to have it. But look at it, computers, faxes, I can remember coming off I-95 at midnight. I've been up to Springfield presenting a contract. And as far as I remember, I got it through. But we were often on the highway at night from submitting a contract out of the area. It was very much a small board and very much almost like a family. You know, you got to know everybody and you got to know all their problems, and you worked with other agents to make a deal work. And I mean, you really cared not only about your customer or client, but you cared about people from other companies.
As far as what was happening in the news locally, it was all about the growth. And this was it was 2002, and the counties were coming up with ways to slow things down. So what they were doing was changing the ordinances. Like if you had a residential one zone land, you could probably put maybe 3 or 4 subdivision lots in it. And so if you had 10 acres, you could do up to 40 lots. So what they were doing is saying, well, you need one acre per one lot. And so the density was going to go way down. The other technique they were using is proffers. They were just new. And that meant if you were going to rezone something from, say, agricultural to residential, you might have to pay $8,000-$10,000 per unit that you were able to get. And so, as the president of FAAR, I would go to the public hearings. I think I went to one in Stafford and one in Spotsylvania and spoke and say, this is against property rights. Somebody supposed to be able to build on it, now they can't, or you're making them pay hundreds of thousands of dollars or more to do what's by right, or was by right, just to get it rezoned. So it did have effect of slowing the growth down, and that's what they did. I don't know what kind of concessions we ended up getting for it, but as president, I felt like I had to do that. I don't remember exactly how we got our MLS listings in, but I do remember we were switching to the key is e-keys. They were just coming out, and you had to have a POM, and it was called a PDA, Personal Digital Assistant. And it's like you downloaded it at night to charge it up, and the listings would come through to that. And so you could search with that. But it was, looking back on it, it was difficult to operate. You had the stylus pen and you were picking things. So that technology-wise, it was still better than, I mean, it seemed to be the digital age, but it was still way before iPhones and what we have now. But that was the latest on that.
In 2008, we had an interesting year because it was the first full year of the recession. So times were hard. We had a lot of short sales, we had a lot of foreclosures, and we had a lot of learning to do. We had to know how to help our clients best defend their homes and short sales, and how to help them if their houses were going to foreclosure. One of the biggest things that we did in 2008 that was near and dear to my heart was the establishment of the Multicultural Committee. We partnered with VHDA to provide brochures for home ownership and mortgages in Spanish. In addition to that, we organized classes here at FAAR and also outside in some of our minority communities, and we wanted to show them how we could provide assistance and resources for minority realtors, for minority lenders, for our minority clients, and also customers. During that year, we performed a lot of classes and we performed a lot of events to get the Multicultural Committee's name out there, and we were very successful. And lastly, I would say that the other interesting part in 2008 was, just as I was elected as the first Black president at FAAR, we also had the first Black president elected for the President of the United States.
Well, the year was 2009, and I don't recall the exact number of members, but we were definitely in, our membership was lowering. I believe we were probably around maybe 1,100 members at the time. But what I vividly recall is that we were in the midst of a recession, and which had a great effect on the housing market. The bubble had burst, and in particular here in our region. As a result of that, we were dealing with a lot of short sale transactions and foreclosures. The unfortunate consequence of that was that there was not a lot of information out there for our realtor members on how to deal with the ethical dilemmas brought on by those transactions. So, at my request, FAAR invited the 4 surrounding associations to have a dialogue, and we wanted to come up with a ways or a means for us to, support our members and help them with these ethical situations and dilemmas brought about by those transactions. So, as a result of that dialogue, there were quite a number of areas that we were able to help them with. So the dialogue crystallized the problem and generated many useful tools, one of which was a resource website. The Virginia Realtors also got involved, and they developed the short sale program. The SFR certification was a result of that, as well as the citation system. Further dialogue brought in MRIS, because we had some reporting dilemmas and not really knowing how to deal with how to status the short sales and the foreclosures. So that was probably one of the biggest areas I can think of, and the greatest asset that we were able to provide to all the members within the region.
So 2011 was a tough year. We actually had to deal with foreclosures, REO properties, a lot of real estate owned properties, tons of short sales. And we were working so hard with our clients, trying to help them stay in their homes, trying to work with the banks so that the banks would understand the hardship that this was putting on a family. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, and usually months and months and months went on before the short sales were settled. It got so bad that at some points we literally had to pick up the phone and call our congressmen and ask them to help. And a call from our congressman to the bank usually settled an issue. Our membership number was 1,277. We had dropped slightly from previous years, but whenever the market in our industry changes, we see a change in the membership numbers. So even in 2012, the number may have gone up, but not just slightly. So I think it was really the foundation that so many who had led before kept FAAR in a good position, because we were in a good position. We had good, solid leadership. Pat and her staff, we just kind of reined everything in. We didn't go crazy, but I will say we did have a few glasses of wine, and we traveled to the conventions, which were really fun, interesting. Got to meet people, got to learn and hear different ideas from different people from across the nation. And I think when you get into a leadership role, one of the most important things you can do is listen to what others are doing, take the examples from those who have tried and tested something, and move forward. And we did.
Well, way back in 2012 when I was president, seems like a long time ago, 7 years ago now, but it was honestly the best year of my life. I absolutely love being president for the members of FAAR. Probably the thing I remember most is the fact that we all appreciate, respect, and love our PAC and know the value of it. I actually died for it. I was murdered the year I was president by several members that loved me dearly, I'm sure, here at FAAR. But what was so memorable about that was just, I don't think I've ever had a night in my entire life that I've laughed so much. And it's also the night that I met Mr. McGrath, soon to be a future president, in 2018. So that was a big night that I had there. It was a lot of fun to get back to our PAC, but it was a really fun format. The thing that I'll remember most about being president in my year was the outreach. Our theme for that year were that the members are the heart of FAAR. And in that year, we did a ton of outreach. We did over 20 office visits, and I wrote out 500 personal cards to members, thanking them for being a valued member of FAAR. And each one it wasn't a form card, it was personal to whatever they were involved with at FAAR, what they did for FAAR, or how we interacted. So that's what I remember most. But it was truly one of the best years of my life, and I will always treasure that memory.
The experience and opportunity that you are given when you are able to serve as a president, it is incredible. You don't realize what and where it's going to start and or lead you to. I never expected so much to come out of serving as president. I am so grateful for the opportunity that FAAR had given me. And I am excited for the next generation and can't wait to see others move forward. I wish them all well.